So, if you haven't done one of my free workshops before, welcome. I'm so excited. Today, I'm covering a topic that I think is very poignant right now in today's world, no matter where you are, whether you're in the United States or somewhere else. And it's like how to start over and discovering other career paths. I think so often we think that there's just like one path or our career should be more linear. But for myself, I have found that my career has jumped in lots of different ways. I haven't always been an astrologer, and I'll share more about my story and how I came to become an astrologer and create my website that generates few reports, yoursaturn.com, so that you can kind of understand, like, oh, this is how Alice's path has been, and getting some ideas like for yourself. Because I think oftentimes when I talk to people, just like knowing and recognizing that, yeah, sometimes we're working extremely hard, feeling like we want to put in extra others hours, and other times we kind of want to pull back, go inward, and have a bit of kind of more introspection. And sometimes it's, a spiritual awakening. And so you need time to process all of those things. And so, what I really like to do at the start of all of my workshops is a grounding meditation. So, wherever you are, I want you to root down through your sit bones, through your feet, and start to roll your shoulders back a few times, then forward, then one more time up and down the back. Press the shoulder blades together. And if your eyes aren't closed, I invite you to close your eyes. Drop into the body, drop into the present moment. And start to notice the quality of your breath. And start to slow your breath down. Lengthen your inhales, extend out your exhales. And we'll start with 3 cleansing breaths. Empty the breath out. Take a deep breath in through the nose and an audible exhale out through the mouth. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Audible exhale out through the mouth. And one more deep breath in through the nose. Hold it at the top. Can you breathe in a little bit more air? And let it go out through the mouth. Seal the lips, start to breathe in and out through the nose. Feel the breath move through the back of the throat, down the length of the spine, and into the belly. Feel your face relaxing, your shoulders moving away from the ears. And really allow yourself to be present in this moment in time. And I invite you to set an intention for our workshop today. My intention for you is to be open, curious, and most importantly, to have fun. The insights that you need to hear will come through clearly today. Empty the breath out. Take a deep breath in through the nose and an audible exhale out through the mouth. And as you're ready, gently open your eyes, coming back to the present moment and the present space. All right, welcome back. So, I'm going to start off with sharing my story, and then we'll get into the forecast. And today, I'm going to have a bit of a longer forecast in terms of talking about times when we are going to be more prone to those career transitions and big life changes. So, my name is Alice, and I'm a career astrologer. I really believe that astrology is a powerful tool to help you understand yourself, and when you understand yourself, you have just have more clarity about how you want to help others, how you want to spend your waking hours, your working hours. And that is just the first step. that understanding of who you are and how you want to make a difference in the world or how you want to spend your time. And I have found it to be so helpful in my journey. And that is one of the reasons why I became an astrologer, specifically focusing on career, whether you're going through a career transition or you just want to understand the astrological forecast, kind of like the weather forecast, so that you can be prepared for some of the ups and downs that just naturally come up in life. Now, in my 20s, I worked a corporate job. I was in consumer marketing. I worked abroad in Shanghai for many years, and very much so when I was working for other people. It was the start of a lot of different like social media like revolutions in terms of like a community manager being a job that was back in like '09, 2010, and that was in the United States. And then I found an opportunity to work in China, and that also came about like heavy social media adoption. And I found myself in a career that was quickly accelerating in my 20s. I was working at Hilton, I was working at a PR company, I was traveling all over Asia and even making trips to the United States and Europe for clients. And really, on paper, it was like pseudo glamorous, right? I got to travel a lot, I worked with really big clients, but I always felt a little empty inside. And as I was approaching like my mid to late 20s, it was just becoming increasingly obvious that this wasn't going to be something that I wanted to do for a very long time, but I just didn't know what was next. And so that really kind of started my Saturn return, which we all go through, and I'll speak more about that in a little bit. It's an existential time. And that was like my late 20s, early 30s. I had moved back to the US, moved back home, became a full-time entrepreneur. So many different things were different about my life. And I went through this huge transformation of my belief systems. I had a spiritual awakening. And at the end of my Saturn return, I realized how powerful like yoga, astrology, like mindfulness practices were in terms of allowing me to understand myself and what I wanted in a career and what I wanted from this life. And I've had this business for about, I want to say it's been like 6 years now. And I started it in Washington, D.C. It was an events business that was about like holistic health and like spiritual topics. And some people in the digital room right now were with me during those early years. And through the creation of this business, it has grown so much. And I'm now very much so focused on showcasing astrology. I created the website. You've gotten your free career astrology report a couple years ago, after some very important transits that astrology was able to kind of shine a light on, so I could understand like, okay, this is the time for me to start something new. And so I'm here today to really just share with you, what are some of those moments that will bring about change in your life, specifically in your career? And then what can you do? How can you use astrology to figure out those career pivots? Because um, in the United States, and I think that for still many parts of the world, our jobs and our identities are so closely linked together that when we get laid off or when we kind of feel like I don't want to do this anymore, I like want to quit, or like I just don't know what to do next, it can be like very jarring. It can cause like an identity crisis because our identities are so closely tied to what we do for better or for worse. And so I want you to leave this workshop feeling excited, at the very least curious about what other things that you can do. And if you've already gone through your Saturn return, if you kind of been experiencing things like what I've shared, please pop into the chat. I want you to have these conversations because when we're going through these career transitions, it can feel really, really lonely. Like nobody understands what we're going through. And today, during this workshop, is an opportunity for you to not only gain some insights about how astrology can help you move forward, but also recognize that many of us are in the same boat, and for you to kind of make those connections and really be seen through the chat. Okay, so let's talk about the forecast. So we are finishing up eclipse season, and eclipse season really was all of March, and we're kind of ending it this week. And eclipse season brings about a lot of change, a lot of transformation. Like there's like surprising things that can happen, like huge shifts in like alignment to what you're doing in terms of where you're living, the job that you have. It's just like a moment where if you're not on your path, eclipse season will put you on the path. It's kind of like a check-in from the universe. And this happens twice a year. So this year we have it in March, and we'll have it again in the fall in September. So these are really big moments where things kind of feel like an emotional roller coaster. And this eclipse season was a little bit intense because we had a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, and then a new moon solar eclipse in Aries. So this straddles two different chapters, two different seasons. One that we are leaving, where so we're leaving this chapter where we learned a lot about identity, boundaries, relationships, how, we might be toxic in some of our relationships, how we might be overgiving, and closing that chapter. And with this full moon in Libra coming up on Saturday, that's going to be like really like a full closure. So it's like an in-between moment. And with that full moon in Virgo, it was a lot of like learning, like letting go of releasing perfectionism, being mindful and being aware of like, oh, my well-being is really, really important to me. And this full moon in Virgo that we had at the top of the month really is ushering into this new 2-year cycle. And this 2-year cycle is the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. So we're stepping into a place that really invites you to be creative, to be intuition led in all areas of your life, to be more creative and to find more flow, and leaving behind the need to know, the need to plan, to have control in unhealthy ways, and to be rigid in our thinking. And also, last month we had eclipse season, but we also had two planets in retrograde. So we had Mercury in retrograde, which ended yesterday on the 7th. And then we still have Venus in retrograde until Saturday. And what does that mean? Retrogrades are kind of like a slowing down time, introspective time. And Mercury is about communication. So during this last month, you may have felt like tongue tied at the start of the month, a little bit more like angry and frustrated with communication, maybe kind of short-tempered, and there might be some tech glitches. I know that I had to replace like all the tires on my car. Um, my electronics have survived Mercury retrograde, but my tires did not. I've heard some other interesting things from clients, from friends, from people like commenting on social media posts as well. But there can be things that, travel delays, miscommunication, a lot of those things. And then on top of that, we have a Venus retrograde that doesn't really happen often. It's like every 18 months, I believe. The last time it happened was the summer of 2023, and I believe it was a Venus retrograde in Leo. And if you love celebrity pop culture, like that was the summer where so many celebrities like broke up with their significant others, but that also was a time that kind of like started a lot of breakups over the last 2 years: professional, romantic, familial, friendship wise, all of those things. And a Venus retrograde allows us to be more contemplative about how we show up in our relationships, as Venus is the planet of relationships, but also values, money, beauty. And so these are all the things that we're thinking about. So if your relationships have really been on your mind over the last month, especially this week, you've been thinking a lot more about money and the investments that you've made into yourself and whatever else it may be, totally normal. And because we have this full moon in Libra coming up on Saturday, but also Venus retrograde will end on Saturday, this month, this week is really a week where we are thinking about the past relationships. We're thinking about past friendships, maybe. You might be thinking about exes, things related to like money, like all things I shared about Venus, but also because, like, with the full moon in Libra, Libra is the sign of relationships. So you might be thinking, like, am I overgiving in this friendship? And probably being a little hard on yourself because over the last 6 months, you feel like you've started a new chapter in your relationships. And this week kind of feels like you might be being pulled back, kind of getting into old patterns. And don't worry, that's really just the full moon kind of clearing things out and allowing you to process some of those lingering things, lingering lessons that we've really been focused on over the last 2 years, because the South Node was in Libra. So that's kind of like the forecast of like where we've been. I promise that April, really, despite the news, is going to be a much better month, especially the last few weeks. Like the last 2 weeks of April, it's going to be a lot better. You're going to feel a little bit more momentum to start something new. And overall, the astrology supports just planting new seeds, doing new things, grounding, and focusing on the things that you want to create this year for yourself. All right, so let's talk about these astrological milestones that share when you're going to start over, according to astrology. Now, this is not, there's a lot of things that happen in a chart. It's very hard to just pick one thing, but I find that these two things that I speak about, will speak about, really are big pivotal moments that everyone kind of acutely experiences. And then in between moments, there's some things that kind of come up. So we're talking about a Saturn return and we're talking about a nodal return. A Saturn return will happen like approximately every 30 years, and a nodal return will happen around every 18, 19 years. So, in my story about how I started this business, it was because I finished my first Saturn return in my late 20s, early 30s. We have another one mid to late 50s, and then another one mid to late 80s. Now, like, right now is a very liminal time because we are kind of in between. Like right now Saturn is in Pisces, but it'll enter Aries for a little bit of time this year and then go back to Pisces for the rest of the year and then completely go into Aries next year. So there are probably a good amount of people like in this room, or those listening to the replay, that may be experiencing their Saturn returns. You're either ending your Saturn return, which usually lasts for about 3 years or so, or beginning your Saturn return. Now, a nodal return lasts for about 2 years or so, and it happens like around like 18 or 19. So when you're like going into college, and then around like 36, 37. So it's like every, you can kind of estimate like every 20 years or so to kind of make it easy. Okay, so let's talk about a Saturn return. A Saturn return is really a time when you are very much so very likely to have an existential crisis. It is a time when the universe, specifically the planet Saturn, which is responsible for career, maturity, how you find success, to be like, hey, are you in the right place? Are you doing the right things? And if you're not, you're going to get put onto the right path. I've put up dates, so if you can like, you can also look at your free report to see if your Saturn is in Aries or Pisces or in a different sign, um, or look at like this page to see like does your birthday fall in between these dates. So then you'll start to know like, okay, I'm either right now, if your Saturn is in Pisces, you are in your Saturn return, like ending it. And I have just put some like general dates, and that one for like May 21st should be like 1992. That one was like missing. And you're either ending your Saturn return or you're about to begin your Saturn return. So, a Saturn in Pisces, you're learning how to be creative, listen to your intuition. A Saturn in Aries is encouraging you to step into a leadership role, to be more creative, to be someone that can feel empowered and confident and advocating for yourself. So, this is specifically affecting people with Saturn in Aries and Saturn in Pisces. Okay, so this is all about a Saturn return. Now, the second one is about a nodal return. So, if you were born during these dates, we just started a new cycle in January. So, right now, the North Node is in Pisces for the next like 18, 24 months or so. So, collectively, we all learn these lessons around like what I was saying, like letting go, tapping into your intuition. And if you have your North Node in Pisces, or your birthday falls between like these dates, that means you are going through your nodal return. You can view it as like a mini Saturn return, but not as intense because the North Node is really about like your purpose placement, the way that you can feel really expansive, lessons you're learning in this lifetime. And so we've finished our North Node in Aries lessons, and we are now in our North Node in Pisces. And then I also put in the next set of dates for the North Node in Aquarius, which really is going to be interesting because I think that this is going to be a time. So that'll happen in 4 years' time. So in 2020, um, 2026 to 2027, like that's when it's going to start. And that's going to be when we will have an extreme adoption and integration of AI and technology into our lives. And let me see if there's any questions. Yes, last month Charlie cooked me in the gut. Where can we see the years to see if we're in one of these returns? Well, I put Oh, sorry. Yes, I only put in like the ones that are like the most recent. But if you go look at your free career astrology report from your Saturn.com, look to see like where your North Node or what your Saturn is in. Could be in Sagittarius, it could be in Scorpio. And you can, there's just like so much information. You can also do a quick Google too, of like the years of like when these signs are going to be like for the North Node or for Saturn. But you see it in your free report, the North Node and Saturn. And you can always just drop your North Node or Saturn into the chat and I'll get to it during the questions portion. All right, my friends. Any questions? I know that's like a lot of information, especially if you don't know too much about astrology. So let me know if you have any questions. Saturn is in Pisces per my free report, yes, and North Node in Taurus, yes. So you are finishing your most likely your second Saturn return. And the second Saturn return is really about like legacy. During this time, it's like almost when you're reflecting on like how do I want to make a difference? How do I kind of want to pass the torch along? Or how do I really want to grow my business or my career in like really new and profound ways? Sage says, Saturn in Aquarius, North Node in Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn, North Node in Aquarius. Oh, yes. So don't worry, we're going to cover stuff about the North Node today specifically. So we'll be covering all these things. So the North Node in Aquarius and Saturn, I mean, it's the Saturn in Aquarius and Saturn in Capricorn, those are also quite recent as well in terms of like when you just finished your Saturn return. And I find that Saturn and Aquarius friends, like you are learning how to be very unique and trusting in your own timing. And Saturn and Capricorn, that's a savage one because right when it ended, and I'm trying to think, it ended in I think it was 2022. That's when Saturn in Aquarius ended, and and I think Saturn in Capricorn ended in 2020. And with the Saturn in Capricorn, it's like during your Saturn return, like you were feeling fine, like late 20s, early 30s, like really hustling, really kind of getting promotions and like wanting to be more well known in your industry or your work. And then once it ended, you got what you wanted, and you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore. So let me know if yeah, I know that's it's really savage because you're just like walking along, you're like, I'm doing fine, like, like my Saturn in Capricorn, and then it hits you, and you're just like, oh my God, it's like 31, 32. You're like, wait, I'm starting over. It was so hard. And you're just like, oh, I don't know if I want to work a corporate job anymore, but wait. How do I start a business? I know. Astrology is really helpful and helping you feel like not so weird. So, okay, let's go over some astrology basics before we kind of jump into the North Node, just so we're all on the same page, especially if we have people in the room who don't know a lot about astrology. Doing a time check. Okay, so Sun, the Moon, and the Rising. This is your big three, your astrological triad, the foundation of who you are. And specifically, when we think about it from a work lens, I'll kind of go through each one so you can understand, like, oh, if I'm like a Gemini sun, like what does that mean like for work? And I will use myself as an example. So with the sun, it's about your identity, it's who you are, and at work, it's what you really need to thrive. I'll use myself as an example. I'm a Leo sun, so I really need compliments. I need to know that I'm doing a good job. I need to have a platform. I like to be client facing. When I was working at a PR agency, I loved giving presentations. I love being on a stage. And now that I have my own business, I love giving workshops, whether it's something like this that's much more cerebral or a sound bath, allowing people to get into their bodies, to get relaxed and connect with their intuition. Like, I just love having a platform, having a stage. I have a Capricorn moon and rising. So, what does that mean? So, I tend to work when I'm processing hard emotions or when I'm just feeling like, oh, I don't know why I'm feeling like sad. I'm like, let me just dive into work. That's very much so a Capricorn moon thing. And if you have like an earth moon, so Capricorn, Virgo, or Taurus, it's very hard for you to process emotions, as well as any air signs, air sign moons. That's Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. It can be very challenging to be like, oh, what are emotions? I should sit with them and let them move through me instead of kind of like thinking about them, or kind of just like keeping yourself busy to kind of avoid them. And like the moon sign is not something that's like as readily seen like at work, because it's like, your inner world. Not everybody is privy to this place, this space, but it is like what you really need when you're going to feel burnt out. And for me, what I've learned is like with a Capricorn moon, I have to redefine success, and like working more is not going to kind of be a one-to-one in like, if I work more, I'm gonna get like, a better outcome, or like get like a higher yield. So learning how to work smarter, not harder. And then Capricorn rising. This is how you see the world, how people see you. It's kind of like first impressions. And I have a Capricorn rising. So a lot of times when people first meet me, they think like I'm a consultant. I can come off as a little bit serious. They really don't expect that I am an astrologer, that I do the work that I do. But I'm like, oh, but I talk about career and business. It makes so much more sense. And you can view this as when you are like meeting people like for the first time. It's like first impressions, and also like your POV, like the lens in which your filter of like how you see the world. So I always see the world through like even before I became a career astrologer, around like business. Like I really would read the news a lot. I would like talk to friends about like their jobs, and if they're looking for jobs, try to connect them to the right people. And that's just like, always been a big focus like for me. So um it's no surprise that that's, a big part of what I do now, the career and business stuff. And let's see if we have any questions here. Oh, Leo sun, moon and rising, Nicole? You're a Leo sun, moon and rising? That's very unique. Lots of Leo energy. Wow, Mercury and Mars as well. It's like those TikTok memes, those TikTok videos, and when there's like six planets in the same sign. You should be on camera, really. You should be in a sales or marketing role. Okay, so now we have kind of like a foundation, the sun, the moon, and the rising. And what we are going to be talking about next is the North Node. Okay, so what is the North Node? So everybody go get their free or their expanded report and go see in the chart properties. Like there's a line that's like North Node and what that sign is in. So it's about life lessons, it's destiny, what you're learning, and really how you access your zone of genius and where you're going to feel stretchy and expansive. This is the placement that I want you to look at when you are starting over, when you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing next, or if you're looking to start your own business or a side hustle. Just curious about what else there might be for you, all the different paths that you can take. Now, there's a lot of other factors that kind of tie into ideal jobs and businesses and industries to be in, but I find that focusing on the North Node can be extremely helpful because it can be overwhelming looking at too many different things at the same time, which was one of the reasons why I created the free report. So there's none of the astrological jargon, and you're just like, oh, like just having a nice piece of information served to you. So, with the North Node, again, this gives you insights into different jobs, different industries that you can be in. And I specifically like to focus on the North Node more than like the midheaven or the 10th house, which traditionally speaking, astrologers really like to focus on because the 10th house slash midheaven, depending on the system that you use, is about your career. But I find that it's like it's also how you find like success in your career. But I really find that when we are embodying the characteristics of our North Node, it allows you to step into that 10th house or midheaven characteristic a lot better. Because I almost feel like it is an outcome from you like pursuing your purpose and understanding your purpose. Does that make sense? What questions do we have here? North Node in Virgo, and my sun is in Pisces. I feel it hard to be organized and feel lost a lot. Yes, and that makes a lot of sense. And I'll talk about it a little bit more once we kind of go through each of the signs as well. Okay, so the South Node. North and South Node, they're opposite of one another. The South Node is about past lives, karma, mastered skills. If you're feeling stuck in your career, you are most likely pursuing a South Node role, job, industry, characteristics, like whatever. It is something that I actually think, and I teach in my astrology course, that I think that if you don't really relate to your sun, your moon, your rising, look at your South Node, because I really think your South Node is the core of who you are. And don't worry, I have a handy dandy kind of slide coming up that tells you what your South Node is, because I don't have that on the chart properties yet. Okay. So I'll use myself as an example, and it's actually the same placements as like what we're going through collectively, the collective lessons. So my North Node is in Pisces, and my South Node is in Virgo. So subsequently, if your North Node is in Virgo, that means your South Node is in Pisces. Before I became an astrologer, before I started this business, I was in a lot of operational roles. I was behind the scenes. Like I said, I worked in PR. So I was, working on accounts, pitching new clients, doing client relations, making sure that the execution of all these social media campaigns, PR campaigns were like running very smoothly. And as I transitioned out of a corporate job and into entrepreneurship, I had an e-commerce company before this one, and I was in like a CMO slash COO role. So I was doing the marketing as well as the operations, but in a startup environment. So I was getting more into a more creative space. And then after my Saturn return, when I started this business, I fully stepped into my North Node in Pisces by really learning more about spirituality, astrology, and using all of these things to help people. Now, really important differentiation to make. You could be working in these fields, or you could be learning these lessons. So, another example of someone with a North Node in Pisces, they're like, well, I'm not going to become like a spiritual guide or start a spiritual business, but you could be leaning more into your artistic side because Pisces is one that is very psychic, very intuitive, very musically inclined, entertainment focused, like art focused. So you could be learning how to embody these characteristics. Now, when we're reading for, like, let's say, like a new moon or a full moon horoscope, oftentimes people look at the sun sign or the rising sign. If you want to connect with your higher self, if you want to connect with where you're going in this lifetime, where you're going to feel expansive and challenged, it's going to feel a little bit like edgy. I want you to read for your North Node placement. So, with this upcoming full moon in Libra, read for what Pisces says. And that is kind of like a slice of like a version of yourself that is like loading because we're always kind of becoming and stepping into our North Node selves. And it's very normal for you to feel a little disconnected with your North Node placement. What I found is like really anybody in their like 20s and 30s and beyond, like the older you get, the more it can seem like, whoa, I don't really understand my North Node. Versus like when I'm making reports, like the astrology parenting guides that I have for children that are being born right now, like they're a couple years old or like under a year old, like I look at their charts and I'm like, wow, you're going to be able to pursue like your purpose, like your North Node much more easily than your parents. Because I've been able to see like parents, their parents' chart as well. So I think that's really interesting in terms of like consciousness and purpose, like really shifting within generations as well. Okay, we're looking at the comments. Okay, great. No questions yet. So let's talk about your placements. And let me see about timing. Might go like a little bit over today because I went and did the forecast and the astrological milestones, which is a little bit longer than usual. So looking at the opposite signs. So if your north node is in Aries, that means your south node is in Libra. If your north node is in Libra, that means your south node is Aries. So these are interchangeable, these signs. Like north node in Aquarius, that means your south node is in Leo. So I'm going to give you just a moment to figure out what your south node is. And I'm going to go through each of the signs now and give some more examples. So I want you to take notes about your north node and your south node. Okay. So we're going to talk about fire signs first. So again, we're talking about the North Node in Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Now we have all 12 signs represented in our chart. So like the jobs that I'm sharing here and the characteristics of these signs that I'll be sharing in a little bit will very much so be applicable for like your sun sign, your moon sign. Like all these definitions are like the same. These like the essence of these signs are the same that you can apply to any quote unquote planet in your chart. But right now, we're focusing on the North Node. So, a North Node in a fire sign is really embracing creativity, being bold, like, kind of like being in the spotlight with the North Node in Aries, like really embracing how you are a visionary, how you are a leader, and that you can like do things on your own. That's like a very important lesson. And with the North Node in Leo is stepping into the spotlight. I just did a podcast episode with a friend and a client yesterday, and her North Node is in Leo, and she's just like, yes, I feel really uncomfortable every single time I need to film like a TikTok video, an Instagram reel, or like do a podcast, but I know I'm like supposed to be doing this. It's my North Node. This is a sign that's very much so the performer and feeling more confident being in front of the quote unquote camera. A North Node in Sagittarius is one that is focused on having like a bigger view. The only like paired signs that I think that don't have it as bad in terms of like understanding like their North Node and pursuing their North Node characteristics and life lessons are going to be a North Node in Sagittarius or a North Node in Gemini, because these two signs are very similar. And the only difference is like the North Node in Sagittarius is really about having a more global perspective, being more adventurous. I find that with the North Node in Sagittarius, they usually come from very tight-knit families and communities, and they like travel abroad or move to a really big city and are ever curious and always learning, and sometimes can feel like they have to continue learning to be like quote unquote like worthy. Now moving on to Earth signs. So a North Node in Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. So for all of my North Node and Earth signs in this lifetime, you are meant to be grounding your intuition, your ideas into reality. Because with a North Node in Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, you are naturally very intuitive because your South Node is in a water sign. But what you need help is making all these things kind of tangible in this reality, in this world. So with the North Node in Taurus, you are working on trusting that you can stand on your own 2 feet, that you can do things on your own. And this could look like working in food and beverage and luxury goods, like textiles, being a chef, working in finance. With the North Node in Virgo, you are learning how to get organized. Yes, and this is a big year for you because you're going through a reverse nodal return. So, learning about how some of the ways that you're a little bit too free, too flowy, and need to have better like routines for yourself, but also things for your career and for your business if you are starting a business, and getting help and kind of like making sure that you have the right tools in place to really ground your ideas into reality. A North Node in Capricorn, this can be challenging. I would say this is one of the most challenging ones because a North Node in Capricorn feels very torn. They don't understand like what they're meant to be doing and they feel like they have to choose because a North Node in Capricorn is actually meant to be doing many different things, actually starting many different types of businesses. They're stepping away from being very family oriented, very caring and nurturing for others, and focusing on what they need. And this is why I have these roles listed here for a North Node in Capricorn, like a CEO, an entrepreneur, like a serial entrepreneurial, an entrepreneur, a consultant. At the very least, like maybe you are opening offices or starting new divisions in a company that you're working in. If you aren't, starting your own business. Okay. Sage is the only Leo placement I have is in Chiron in the 10th house. Very interesting because when your Chiron is in Leo, almost always I feel like these people are meant to be in the spotlight, meant to be a little bit famous. And for you in the 10th house, it's like kind of like being well known in your industry, in your career. Angel says, North Node in Taurus, financial stability and independence part was real. Never would have thought about these things as a career, but have thought about food writing or something with food. Yes. So it's not always about like, as a career, but like it could just be some of the things that you're learning to embrace, like these characteristics of being more financially like let's say like responsible, being more aware of like how to be more financially literate. And you went through these things when your nodal return was it was 4 years ago. That's when it started. So it ended 2 years ago. So, let's see, from like 2021 to 2023, that was like a rough time for my North Node and Taurus friends. Sage says, spot on with North Node and Capricorn. So I hope this gives you permission to start all the things that you want, but focus on one thing, then go to the next thing. Because when you're spinning too many plates, it can be a little tricky. Martha says, North Node is also in Taurus, but I'm not sure how luxury goods, chef finance, or food relate to me. Okay, don't worry. I'll share a little bit more about how like the houses can help you with that, but also it's just like think about like those characteristics I said about like a North Node in Taurus is learning how to stand on their own 2 feet, depend on themselves, and learning that stability can only come from within. Oh, we have a lot of North Nodes in Taurus. Debating between staying in entrepreneur fashion or go back into finance. Yes, I know. You're always just like, oh, like being more practical or kind of like following your heart. Those are things that happen. And says, any tips for when your South Node and Sun are the same sign, mine being Pisces? I know. So it's like you're so comfortable with your like naturally intuitive and creative self. I'm not saying that you need to like release all those things, and you've been learning this over the last few years as Saturn has been in Pisces, and now kind of finishing these things up as we move through North Node in Pisces and South Node in Virgo, because you're going to start to realize like parts of you that have been like maybe like in denial of the truth, maybe a little bit delusional, and those kind of like false things will kind of slip away, and you will start to have a better understanding of how to use your intuition in everyday life. Amy says South Node in Capricorn, North Node in Cancer. Okay, I'll cover the North Node in Cancer. Craving for financial stability, North Node and Rising are the same. They're not. They can be different. Oftentimes they are different. As a North Node in Capricorn, I definitely see myself as a reluctant leader, yes, but everyone's looks to me and actually takes charge. Yes, I have a client. He is a Northern in Capricorn and he just like refuses to like manage people. And I'm like, but this is your life. You must manage people. I know you don't want to do this, but you must manage people at work. Okay. Moving on. So, North Node in air signs. We have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And with the North Node in Gemini, you are learning to kind of not be flighty and kind of like let's say think that, oh, if I move to this place things are going to be better, like really like finding local community and having more accessible ways that people can connect with you and the knowledge that you have, because a North Node in Gemini is a really great communicator. They're very curious, naturally from that South Node in Sagittarius, but with the North Node in Gemini you're really meant to cultivate local community, as well as just like giving your knowledge, like becoming like making it more bite-sized so that people can kind of connect with you more. A North Node in Libra, this is a sign that is very much so learning to build more social connections, learning to depend on others, learning like healthy relationships are going to be very expansive and stepping away from codependency lessons that you've been learning over the last few years. Then we have our North Node in Aquarius. This is a very innovative placement. I find that North Node in Aquarius can also be challenging for people because it's like the sign that is weird and quirky and different. And it doesn't matter if you have your North Node in Aquarius or like your Sun in Aquarius, this is a sign that is very innovative, always future forward thinking. And the most important thing is learning about your timing and embracing that you are very different. Very good teacher, because they take in a lot of information. They love to consume in information, insights, info. Okay, now we have finally our North Node in water signs, and that is a North Node in Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So you already have a really good basis of, let's say, practicality, logic, operational efficiency, and understanding. And in this lifetime, you're learning how to be more carefree, more intuitive, more creative. A North Node in Cancer, interestingly enough, I see a lot with my clients with the North Node in Cancer that they work with their families on something because Cancer is a sign of family, and it's allowing them to understand like it's okay to not always work because they can really work overwork a set with a South Node in Capricorn to be like work is the most important thing, but actually family, community, like slowing down is what you're learning. And then North Node in Scorpio, these people are going to be the best in a consultancy role because they see so clearly, not only energetically, but also very detail oriented, very data driven. So I always see like a Northern Scorpio, they can be a healer, they can be a consultant, an analyst working like as a researcher, like investigator, something in like finance, even something technological as well. They are deeply feeling, and what is obvious to a Scorpio is not obvious to others. So they can be very triggering, which makes them really great people for if they have to come in and consult and be like, hey, this is what's going on. Or if they're helping people move through a hard time, like therapy or shadow work or like healing parts of themselves that like they don't want to see. A Scorpio is really good at that. Now, Northern and Pisces, I already had a lot of examples for that because that was the one I used earlier. But again, very artistic, very musically inclined, very psychic. And whether or not you're learning to embody these characteristics or actually stepping into a role of being an artist or being more just creative, those are the two ways that we can all interpret our North Node signatures. Okay. Yes, an Aquarius Sun, Mars, Mercury, South Node. Yes, Melanie, you're always doing something different because, like, when you embrace that, it's going to feel so much better. And actually, last year when Pluto went to Aquarius, you felt like you were able to just do that. Like, people are really embracing. like being weird, being different, being you. Okay. Okay. So, North Node in Sagittarius. Don't worry, I'm gonna bring it up in the next slide. Okay, so I put everything here. It's a great slide to take a photo of. These are some like jobs and industries that are going to be um, something that you can explore. And then during each of the slides, I also explain some characteristics, which I will share in the next slide as well, like characteristics that you are embodying in this lifetime. What questions do we have? Yes, virtual assistant. VA's virtual assistant, something like in an operations role. They also will be really good at what is like being a professional organizer. Northern in Virgo, professional organizer, like solving problems. And Anna, don't worry if you don't resonate with any of the Pisces career. Again, like the next slide about characteristics might be more applicable to you. And it can also mean that like you might have a lot of Taurus placements. You might have a lot of planets in the second house. So it's not always a one-to-one, like I said before, but it does give you some interesting insights to what this one area of your life and chart can be. Yes, Nika, CEO of your own healing energy business. That is very good. Yes, I know. With like a Northwood and Pisces, they all sound like hobbies, but a career sounds scary to pursue. But don't you worry. Check in with me in 2 years. You're going to be feeling really different. You're going to be like a very different person. Yes, Northwood and Aquarius, like advocacy for a nonprofit fits as well. I look at the sign and I look at the houses too. And we'll have some time to look at the houses very quickly. I have a ton of Taurus, yes. Do cusps still apply? Cusp in what? In terms of like you see that like your North Node in Aries is like in like let's say at 5 degrees. Wing says, I laugh with my South Node in Cancer. Early college wanted to pursue interior design. Fast forward in my late 20s, I'm a therapist. I love that. But also, like, interior design does really fit with Cancer because it's a very homey sign. North Node in Aquarius was a former teacher who left my job to work in tech, but looking to also shift into content creation closer to South Node. It's not a bad thing because there's also other parts, Gina, of your chart as well that could really make like pursuing content creation a lot better. And also maybe your North Node is in the fifth house, and that would be a really good fit. Teaching over social media. Oh, you don't have any plans for your second house. I'd have to look at your report just to see what else is like going on. Okay, so now moving on to the characteristics. So if the jobs didn't really resonate with you, some of these characteristics might resonate more, especially like let's say you have your North Node in Pisces because you're going through your nodal return this year. It is going to be something that you will just naturally experience and go through over the next 2 years or so. Yes, so Martha's asking, can you explain again the relationship between the North Node and the South Node? So the North Node is all about what you're meant to be learning in this lifetime. It's potential like jobs, industries, businesses you can chart that are going to feel very expansive, allowing you to work, like be in your zone of genius. It could also just be, let's say, like lessons you're learning so that you can embody the characteristics of your North Node. Those are some of the lessons that you're learning. And then your south node are things that come naturally, very easily to you. And it is sometimes a place where you can get stuck in your career because you're like, oh, this is a very safe place. But also the South Node gives you an idea of some like very natural characteristics that you have that you can use to help you pursue like your North Node placement. I know, Amanda. It's a little scary, but you're gonna really kind of progress over the next 2 years and like realize a lot of different things. Hmm. So North Node in Aries in the seventh house don't relate to any of the examples given South Node in Libra. That makes a lot of sense, just because with a North Node in Aries in the seventh house, it is a house ruled by Libra. So yours is much more nuanced in terms of balancing leadership and relationships. Very much so, like you could be, let's say, like working in an industry that is very relationship driven, very like let's say networking could be like events, it could be diplomacy, um something that really requires like relationships, because you have it's a much more subtle energy, because like I said, a North Node in Aries in the seventh house is like traditionally ruled by Libra, so it's much more nuanced. Okay, another North Node in the seventh house. Northern Cancer, studying Hellenistic astrology. I want to leave behind being an electronic engineer in the corporate world. I love that. You are embodying your North Node in Cancer, stepping into a more spiritual space. Wonderful. Okay, so very quickly, I'm just going to go over the houses. So the North Node is telling you like what is going on. So the North Node is telling you about potential ideal jobs, where you're going to be learning life lessons. The sign is telling you how it's going to be happening. If it's in like, let's say, Pisces, it's like, oh, it's going to be through trusting your intuition, being more creative, letting go of control. And then the houses are going to be telling you where. And this lends itself to more insights in terms of um, like industries that you could be working in. So you can see in your chart properties, like your North Node could be in the seventh house, your North Node could be in the second house or the third house. Like my North Node is in the second house. So at the same time, I'm like really learning how to have a better relationship with money, and learning how to be independent and really cultivating stability from the inside out. So, all of these are what each house means. Other comments do we have? Oh, so if your North Node is in Capricorn in the third house, it is really much so about like activating your voice and learning how to communicate better, and maybe working in like a media job, a PR job. So Nicole, and North Node in Aquarius in the seventh house, it could be like, let's say you're working for a nonprofit, and learning to work with like many different groups of people. It could also be like a tech job and bringing together a lot of people to create like a tech product, or something that's like very innovative, or like working in an incubator or an innovation center. Oh, Northern in the third house. Yes, activating your voice. So the 10th house is really about the career, about success and how you find success. So if your North Node is in the 10th house, that means career is going to be a really big focus. Yeah, so third house, content creator type of communication. Yes. So Northern Taurus in the first house is really learning about yourself, your identity. And it could also mean that you start your own business with a Northern Taurus in the first house. And it could be in, let's say, an Aries like field. It could be in something creative, something leadership, something with sports or fitness, something like that. Okay. Oh, so in Northern and Pisces in the ninth house. So with the ninth house, it's about belief systems exploration, higher education. And so you could find yourself going back to school. You could find yourself like becoming a therapist. It's like really about changing your belief systems and like how you live, how you work. All right. I don't have any. enough time to answer all the questions, but if you DM me on Instagram or just like reply to any of the emails I sent to you about this workshop, I'm happy to answer those questions for you. I just want to be mindful of time. And so this is kind of like what it looks like from the birth chart. This is like the first house, the second house, it goes all the way around like this way. I know, so much information. There's only so much time. Journaling exercises for you to focus on. I think that it's important that you integrate all this information. So, taking a screenshot of these questions or just picking one to journal about, maybe later tonight, maybe this weekend, that is going to be really, really helpful. And if you really enjoyed this workshop and you really want to dive into the details and drill down, I am finally launching my membership, so stay tuned to the replay of this. I'll also send some information about the membership. We'll be doing monthly workshops. I'll be able to go more in depth about the forecast, how it affects you, as well as talking more about how to make those career transitions and giving you some more clarity about other parts of your chart that give you some insights about like where you are in your career right now, what season you are in, and how to get to that next place. So be on the lookout for the membership, or if you have a lot of questions, you want more personalized insights, you can book a career astrology reading. And don't forget to stay in touch with me over Instagram or even TikTok as well. That was a ton of information. I hope that that was helpful. And stay tuned for the next free workshop. I think I'll do another one at the end of the month. And yeah, let me know what was helpful, what other things that you need some more clarity about, and I will send out the replay, and then I'll also kind of like refine some parts of this workshop so that when I cover it the next time around, it'll be more clear. But yes, any of those individual questions that you have that you put into the chat that I couldn't get into, please just DM me on Instagram or email me, and I will get to those things. Thank you so much for joining today. And I hope to see you at the next free workshop and in the membership. All right, bye.